but I don't know. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I can't wait to share. Yeah, I've got something really neat I want to share with you guys, and I want to see if I'm the only one that didn't know. So I'll get to that in just a minute. I was looking up a common quote. I'm going to share it in a few minutes, but I was looking up a common quote that really connects with this episode, and I found that the quote has changed from the original intent. And I was like, wow. And it means something completely different. And this episode of Pep Talk is going to dive into it. And so I'm actually going to quiz you guys. If you guys are watching and listening, wherever you're watching and listening from, please be prepared to comment, okay? To comment wherever you're on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn. I want to see if you know the answer to a question I'm going to ask you in a few minutes. So bear with me. So as we get started, I just have a couple of questions for you, and then I'll introduce who we are if anybody here is new. But I want to know, have you ever reached that moment where you can clearly see what's not working? No matter what it is, some area of your life, you can clearly see what's not working, but yet nothing changes. You don't take action, or you don't solve it. You just see it, but you don't solve it. So, like if you look at the slide here, you see the problem, now what? So you know the problem, you've named the problem, and you've faced the problem. But somehow that awareness doesn't always make things easier. It can actually make things harder. It can make things heavier, knowing and then not doing anything about it. So what we're going to talk about today is awareness basically can feel discouraging when it doesn't come with an action plan or with support. Just knowing there's a problem, but not knowing what to do about it can actually be worse. And so this is a very real, very common place that people get stuck. Okay, so first of all, if you are joining us for the first time, I want to let you know I'm Andrea Anderson. I am the CEO of Productive Environment Institute, and I am joined by, I'm in Carolina Beach, North Carolina, and I'm joined by...
I'm Barbara Hemphill, founder of Productive Environment Institute in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Awesome. And what we're talking about today, this is Pep Talk. This is what we call our Pep Talk, which is a Productive Environment podcast. And as we get started, let me share a first comment we just received from our friend Dan. He said, I have started to watch these live versus intending to listen later, but not usually doing it. Good for you, Dan. You recognized the problem and you took action. You made a change because you want to hear these messages. And then you think, the action is I'll just listen later. But then the action doesn't happen, and then you've missed an important component. So that's why you're here live, and we appreciate that. And Kathy says, so true, Dan. That is exactly right. So let me take us off the screen here so we can just chat with you guys for a minute. Okay. So, and just again, so you know that what Pep Talk is, it's together. Barbara and I have conversations about what it really takes to move from overwhelm to action. We don't necessarily give you tips or tricks. I don't really like tips or tricks anyway. But we give you things to think about, and we give you resources actually to reach out and get support, because there is everything we talk about, there is help for. We don't necessarily teach the help on these pep talks, but these are to get you moving forward. Okay. So the heart of today's episode is that awareness does not equal action. Okay, so let's think about that for a minute. Have you ever heard a clunk, clunk, clunk in your vehicle and you ignored it? Right? You didn't take it to the mechanic, and then something happened later. So you were aware that there might be a problem. You're aware that something isn't right, but you didn't take action. You just were like, well, that's peculiar. And you kept driving.
Andrea, I have to interrupt you because I have the perfect example. Okay. My late brother, Neil, was a farmer. And I remember so clearly one day I was sitting, he was in the tool shed where he died. And I remember sitting on a stool out there chatting with him, which was just one of my favorite things to do. He was such a wise man. And I said, I could never be a farmer. And he said, why is that? And I said, because there are too many things you can't control. And there was this silence, which is often the way we communicated. I would say something, and then he would stop and he'd say, well, sis, it's not really true. And of course, I'm thinking about the weather and, things like that. And he said, the majority of things that go wrong are things that you could have done something to have prevented if you had done it. And I've never forgotten that. And he proceeded to give examples, like, for example, of a flat tire. And so a flat tire on a piece of equipment was probably because you didn't rotate them or you didn't check it. And I just never forgot that. I thought, how many times is that true?
Yeah. That same. And that's a great story, the farm analogy. And the same thing with medical. How many times have we felt something wasn't right, but we didn't go in and get it checked out, or we didn't take any next actions to fix it?
So I have an example of that in my own life right now that I'm really struggling with and have been for a long time, which is menu planning. Every single day, I think about the fact I'm not planning well, and, I'm trying to improve my eating, and I've improved it. I've made a whole lot of improvements, but it's still kind of catch as catch can. It's not really, and I know I want to do better at that, but I haven't yet. I'm working on it, but I haven't.
Yeah, I have your solution to that, but you won't do it.
I do know what your solution is, and you're right. No, I won't do it.
So it's so easy. I don't even have to menu plan. There's like 4 things.
But you're not married, so
that's true. That's true.
And if it were just me, it would not be a problem. But
that's true. All right. So we were talking about if you hear a clunk, 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 and Dan said, or a transmission spot on the driveway. Yeah, that's kind of a dead giveaway that there's something wrong. And then Kathy said, someone I know ignored the clunking in their car and their engine seized. Yeah, that actually happened to me before too. And it was not good. It was a very expensive lesson. So yeah, that's what we're talking about today. And insight, having insight about something does not necessarily mean that you're going to do something and there's going to be momentum. So insight does not equal momentum. And then seeing the truth doesn't automatically change your environment. So we talk about clutter, disorganization, overwhelm, and often we stop seeing it because we're in it, right? So Barbara, when we first start working with somebody, one of the things is to have them just step back and look. Just step back and look around.
What I started doing, and in the book, Love It or Lose It, Living Clutter-Free Forever, we talked about this. This is kind of a trip. Take a picture of it and look at the picture. Because you see things when you look at it. Oh, I never realized that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just stepping back and seeing it. Dan, you're on here. You might be like, okay, Andrea, I see it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that action is going to happen. What's needed for action to happen? A plan, a solution, a system, a team, accountability, consistency, additional training. All of these things are needed. And if it's a car situation or a medical situation, just translate all those things I just said over to a mechanic or a doctor or a functional medicine person. So anyway, so here's the quote, you guys. Okay, I looked this up because I've said it myself. And I want to ask you guys, I'm going to say it the way I've heard it. And I want you to answer me in the chat. Just type in wherever you're listening from. If A, you've heard it, and B, who you would attribute it to. Okay, who do you think said this, or who did you hear it from? When you know better, you do better. When you know better, you do better. Okay, have you heard that? Go ahead and put in the comments or the chat. Okay, Barbara said heard it, but no idea who said it. Have you heard it like that? You heard those words, when you know better, you do better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how.
Or I've heard it. No, I've heard it. Knowing is not knowing better. I don't know. I know I've heard something related to it. I don't remember exactly.
Okay. All right. I'm going to give you guys a minute. Post in the comment. Can't post comments to some destinations. Okay. Yeah. So if you're listening, Kathy, I know you're on here. Dan, have you guys heard this? Nancy, you're usually on live. Are you guys hearing me? Post in the comments. Okay. Kathy says, yes, I heard it. I thought I've heard it attributed to Maya Angelou. Sorry if that spelling is wrong. Yeah, I know. I mess up her name all the time. Okay. Nancy, have heard it, but don't know who said it. Okay. Who else? I knew you were there, Nancy. Who else has heard it, and who do you think, who did you hear it from? Dan says, sounds a bit familiar, but doesn't seem reality. Okay. Doesn't seem reality. Right? That is an aha. I had an preparing for this episode. I had an aha moment with that quote. Okay. So I'm going to give you the answer. The quote I always heard was, when you know better, you do better. And the first person I heard it from was Oprah. Okay. Oprah said it often. And of course, who was one of Oprah's inspirational mentors? Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou.
Yeah, exactly. So Kathy, you were spot on. That it's originally, according to ChatGPT, it is originally attributed. It's often attributed to Maya Angelou, but there's no writing, or there's no specific confirmation that she was the first that said it, but she was one who said it, and then Oprah carried it on, and I've said it often. Well, guys, on the surface, that sounds encouraging, right? When you know better, you do better. But you want to know what the actual quote was that's been, let me just insert something here. Barbara's quote, her famous quote is, clutter is postponed decisions. And through the years, people have added words like clutter is just postponed decisions, or clutter is only postponed decisions, or clutter is merely postponed decisions, which totally changes Barbara's intent. Okay, so that happened with this quote. Okay, so the quote that we know is, when you know better, you do better. Okay, the original quote is, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. It was an instruction. It wasn't a fact. The fact, when you know better, you do better. The original quote was, then, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. It's an instruction that when you know better, do better. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting. So I think about, I've said it a lot in The Merchant of Venice. There's a quote that I've used many times. It says, if only to know were to do.
Yeah. If only to know were to do. Yep, exactly. So same theme here.
That was Portia. It was a character in Merchant of Venice. It was with Portia, and that was one of the lines.
Okay. Yes. How many times have we experienced that? Kathy said, I've never heard that as a lead into the rest of it. Yeah. I had never heard it. I was going to come on here and do the quote for you, that when you know better, you do better, as part of this theme. And I wanted to confirm that it was Oprah. I thought, well, was it Oprah or was it Maya? And so that was what I was looking up. And then I found that it wasn't even the original quote. It has been changed through the years. So the original version acknowledges that you were already doing, the original version acknowledges that you were already doing the best you could with what you knew and what you had at the time. It doesn't assume failure. It doesn't assign blame. It recognizes context, and then it gives you a directive: do better. Not automatically you will do better. If you know better, you do better. That's not true. That is not true. We know better about a lot of things that we don't do
and
better.
To your point earlier, not only do you not do it, you feel guilty because you don't do it, and then that adds your stress.
That's exactly right. We beat ourselves up. So somewhere along the way, much like Barbara's quote, that quote got shortened. Actually, Barbara's quote got lengthened. But when you know better, you do better. And that subtle change turns a call to action do better as the call to action, into an expectation. So, I mean, my goodness, if you put that quote into diet and exercise, when you know better, you do better. That's not true. How many times how many books have you read? How many diets have you been on? How many workouts? We know what to do. Just knowing is not doing, knowing not to do. Anyway, so it implies that awareness alone should change behavior. The new quote, awareness alone, just knowing should change the behavior. And if it doesn't, Barbara, this is what you just said. If it doesn't change your behavior, then that means something must be wrong with you. And that's just not true. Okay. So especially when you're overwhelmed, when your environment hasn't changed, or when your systems are still creating friction, knowing better doesn't reduce the mental load. Those of you that have been part of our SOAR program, you know, we've taught you everything we know. And just knowing it, is knowing it enough, Dan? Nancy? Is knowing it enough, Kathy? Right? So if anybody else, if you're on, just let us know. Even if you don't know who we are, just pop in the comments, let us know you're listening. So yes, awareness is important, but it's not the same thing as taking action and knowing. All right. So Dan says no. Kathy says 100% no. Exactly. And Nancy says no. That's exactly right. Knowing does not equal doing. Okay. So what does? What does need to happen in between learning about what the reality is, knowing the situation, and then actually doing something about it? That is a gap. That's the gap where a lot of capable, motivated people get stuck. Not because they don't want to do better, but because nothing around them has changed to make doing better possible. So if you've ever thought, I know this isn't working, why can't I just fix it? Why can't I should know how to organize my desk. I should know how to declutter my paper, right? And the answer isn't that you're failing. It's just that awareness by itself was never meant to carry the whole load. Okay.
So Andrea, that's the reason I'm Vision Accelerator, is because when I started the business, I would say organizing in and of itself has no value. And there are people who I had an ex-sister-in-law who spent her whole life organizing and reorganizing. That's all. But in terms of what she accomplished, I mean, how she made the world a better place, there wasn't much of that. And so part of why I launched Vision Accelerator was when people were stuck about something that they knew they wanted to do and they weren't. The reason is because they need to have the why. And I remember so clearly working with Jeanette Anderson, a coach and one of our favorite people. And she asked me what my why was. And I said, my why was that I wanted to give other people hope. And she said, no, that's not your why. That's your what. What are you talking about? No, that's what I want on my tombstone. She gave others hope, which is no, that's your what. And it took a lot of time and tears, to be honest, because I think that deals with what we talk about with organization a lot, is the emotion. I mean, those pieces of paper that you are procrastinating about represent emotion. And until you are willing to face that emotion, you're going to be stuck. And so I figured out the reason that I want to give others hope is that I spent the majority of my life feeling hopeless. So that was my why. So then the question with your papers or your digital, one of the things I'm struggling with now that I know I need to do better and didn't, and I'm paying a price for it, is organizing photographs. It was something I never paid attention to. And now I'm really sorry, because now I'm doing in the business that if I'd organized them, it would have made a huge difference. And I'm paying a big price for it now.
Yeah. Well, and Barbara, one quick question that just popped in my mind is, and it makes a difference on how you organize your photos. If you want, to do that, why?
That's exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
Because the answer might be different based on your why.
For sure. And I remember very clearly one of my very first clients back when I was doing homes there was a woman who had a huge trunk in her living room full of photographs. They were not in any organized, they were just kind of dumped in there. Well, most people look at that and say, that's not organized. She said it was for her because the only thing she cared about was she had 2 granddaughters. And the 2 granddaughters would come, they would sit down in front of the trunk and she would tell stories. That was the only reason she wanted it. That was her why. Her why was to use it as an excuse to tell stories to her granddaughters. Whereas my mother-in-law wanted acid-free paper. She wanted those photographs on acid-free paper because she wanted them. So those are 2 different whys. And we always say organization is not a moral issue, and organizing your paper is not a moral issue. It's like, what are you organizing it for?
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly right. Love that. So Kathy says, I can't tell you how many courses I've taken and then done nothing with my new knowledge.
Oh, Kathy, I can relate.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just this week found the content for 2 courses that I paid a significant amount of money for. And I was in a position now that I could actually go back and do them. So I decided I was going to, and I opened them up and they're no longer relevant because the information that they were teaching at that point is no longer applicable in the environment we're in right now. And so that's one of the ways that people get you. Buy this course and you'll have it for a lifetime. But there are very few courses that are going to be valuable for a whole lifetime.
That's true. And that's a good point. I'm glad you said that because what we do with our SOAR program, Systemize and Organize with Action and Reference, SOAR, the whole program is based on the foundational components that you created nearly 50 years ago.
That's
so true. The principles are absolutely still relevant. Now, the tools and the processes have changed.
But if somebody I have the 1988 version of Taming the Paper Tiger. And if somebody's struggling with paper and they read that and they did what was in that book, it would solve 80% of the problem. It wouldn't solve it completely, but it would solve 80% of it.
That's right. There might need just a few other tweaks after that for today with the internet and everything. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's one of the things I love about the SOAR program is that we do update. We're still basing it on the same foundational principles that still apply. For example, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When we talk about a CRM or a customer database, customer relationship system, wait a minute, customer relationship management says CRM management, right? So now of course that's going to be online. That's going to be, there's all kinds of tools where you keep track of your customers and their information and emailing them and all that. So we've got videos of Barbara on the Today Show and Good Morning America talking about that very same thing. It wasn't called a CRM back then. Guess what it was called? A Rolodex. Exactly. The principle, the tool, the need for a system to keep track of information about people existed a long time ago. The tools have changed. And so we change things in SOAR as life, at the speed of life, I guess you could say. So real quick, a couple other comments here. Dan says, together we are better. That's right. Working together as a team and making those changes. Nancy says, I relate to, and how do I throw away all those books and recordings? I write with the courses, thinking that, like Barbara, that I'm going to go back and go through them. So Barbara, do you have any advice?
I do. Listen, I am passionate about that question because I have seen through 4 decades so many people who are so heavy, weighed down because of that. It's the guilt that comes with it, the money I spent on that, and how irresponsible I was, and I should be doing this anyway. And so I think about, I was in one coaching program for 8 years, and I had an entire drawer, a file drawer full of it. And it was awesome stuff. I mean, Barbara, I really respect it and all of that. But I dumped it all because it's like, I'm no longer in that program. And it's like, I learned from it what I think I wanted. And I guess part of my faith now, part of what drives me forward is my faith that I don't need to hang on to the past. That if I focus on where I want to go in the future, God will give me what it is that I need. And through all the years that I've done this, no one has ever come back and said, I'm sorry I let go of that stuff. Now, I always warn people that I guarantee you down the road, there'll be something, a file, a program, something you say, oh, I wish I had that. But you had to look at what all you had saved in order to have that one thing. And that's why the phrase we hear over and over when people are getting rid of the old piles of files, and this is individuals as well as companies, is, oh, this feels so much lighter.
Amen. Amen. So Nancy, the answer is just do it. You guys know, many of you that are listening, if you're part of our SOAR program or in our community, you know that I've struggled for several years with 2 boxes of notebooks. I used to I would have a notebook next to me and I would take notes on phone calls, notes on webinars, notes on tasks, notes on everything. I had them in notes in notebooks. And I moved them from one condo to another. And 3.5 years later, I still had them and had really been struggling. And everybody on our SOAR calls and on our group calls, people would, I'd get advice even from Barbara, well, just do this. And other people say, well, try this. And I did all those things and I still couldn't do it. And finally, about 2 weeks ago, I did it.
Oh, you did?
I did. Yes, I did.
Love it.
I had a friend over and I said, okay, you're here, so you can help me. And so it was 2 heavy, they were kind of heavy boxes because they were notebooks. And all the things that were in my head were, okay, it's not, what if people read it? Okay, who cares? No, the other part was if I had any because I would even track my bills and sometimes have financial information in my notebooks too. And I thought about that. I'm like, well, these are at least 3 years old, so that's not going to even matter. So I talked myself into getting rid of them, and she helped me. We just dumped them in. I didn't shred them. That would have made me procrastinate. I didn't pull the coils out. That would have made me procrastinate even longer. I just said, these have got to go into the dumpster today. And I did it. So Nancy, I encourage you, if you've got courses and things like that, one of the things, Barbara, when I moved over here to this condo, I had, and I know you do too, you either do or you did, massive sets of CDs, like DVDs, courses on DVDs in the little plastic thing. And finally, when I was moving, I was like, okay, I don't even have a DVD player. I don't even have a CD player. So these can't come with me. And it was painful, Nancy, to put them in the garbage because, like Barbara said, the money, I didn't actually get to go through them. Maybe I'll go through them first and then I'll get rid of them. No, there's new information available out there right now.
And the other thing that comes up a lot is environmental concerns. And, my daughter-in-law majored in environment. I really care about it. But I think when we don't do what we need to do for ourselves to move forward, then we're not being all that God created us to be. And so one of the things to do is to stop the problem. So you can say, okay, I screwed up on this. I shouldn't have done this and whatever, and stop. And then in the future, figure out how are you going to recycle and what are your things on it. But there are so many people. I just talked to a woman recently who has boxes and boxes of stuff that she is willing to let go of, but she's concerned about the environment issues of it. And she's an artist. She's an incredible artist who should be doing awesome things. And she's in boxes of paper that are just
yes. I remember
horrible price to pay.
It is. I remember working with a client, and you remember those game shows where you can call a friend? So I called Barbara. I was working with a client, and she's probably listening right now. I'm not going to say her name, but we were working together, and I was like, okay, it was massive amounts of paper, and they had staples and binder clips and this and that. And I would call Barbara. I was like, Barbara, what about the environment? And Barbara's like, you can worry about the environment later. Yes, it's important, but where you are now is keeping her stuck. It's keeping her from moving on. Let it go. And so I was like, okay, I called my lifeline. I called my friend. So anyway, guys, I want to wrap this up with a couple of next actions for you. One is to, if you don't know the status of your environment, your productive environment, then let's get your score. Let's get your scorecard in, productiveenvironmentscore.com. And if you've already taken one of these with us and it's been over a year, go ahead and take it again. Productiveenvironmentscore.com. That gives you the awareness of it. That gives you awareness that, you know, you have some strengths and you have some things that can be improved upon. Okay, so that's your step one, is to get your productive environment score, productiveenvironmentscore.com. And then the second one is we are having an upcoming workshop. So I'm not going to give you the date because it depends on when you're listening to this video. When you're watching this video on YouTube, you can still go to this website and see when our upcoming workshop is. Okay, we love to do workshops. So we're doing a workshop and it is called Soar into Action. So once you have the awareness of a problem, of an issue, then the Soar into Action workshop, and we're doing this live, the Soar into Action workshop gives you the steps. It gives you the steps, the system, the support, the team, the tools. We actually give you the tools too, to accomplish, to fix the problem, or at least start to fix the problem. Okay, so make sure you check out the workshop, workshop.productiveenvironment.com. And then last but not least, if you are really brand new to us, the best place for you to start, other than binge watching all our videos. I love it when people say they do that. I'm like, oh my God, we've arrived. The other best place for you to start is lesscluttermorelife.com. Go there. There's a very brief free training on lesscluttermorelife.com, and that will introduce you to our team, our community, and then you can stay connected with us. So we thank you for joining us. Let me go ahead and add a couple of comments here. Hold on. Dan said, what about cassettes? Remember those? Yes. If you still have cassettes, it's time for them to go, Dan.
And I answered those. I put an answer in there.
Okay. Yep, Dan. Okay. Barbara says, Dan, do you have a player? Do you have to listen?
Do you have time? It's supposed to say, do you have time to listen?
Oh, do you have time to listen? Is that the best use of your time? What's the worst thing that would happen if you toss them? Yeah. And Dan, based on the projects that you're currently working on, that I think that last one right there is super important. And really, number 3, is that the best use of your time? You probably don't need another project. But that's up to you. That is up to you, right? And then Nancy says, what if I don't remember? What if I forget? Oh, all right. Musician Barbara, you can answer this as we wrap up. Nancy
I go back to what I said earlier in the show. I believe that if it's important to remember it, God will give it back to you again. I just believe that.
Well, that's a great way to end. Thank you. Thank you for the hearts. Awesome. All right, guys, thanks for joining us. Please make your way over to our YouTube channel and like this video and share this video, and be sure to subscribe to our channel. We go live I don't want to say every, because sometimes we do a restream, but we go live most Tuesdays at noon Eastern, and we'd love for you to join us live. And if you're listening to the replay, still comment and let us know you listen. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.